Hi everyone, welcome to my Shoreline Studio. I'm Sybille Muschik. Today's snippet we're going to be investigating some texture, and we're starting off with an old school door, and we'll just put that in the overhead camera so you can see it. And so lots of texture, old peeling paint, weathered boards. Most of this door is missing. So we're going to have fun with that. And as well, I have a little favorite jewelry store that sells all sorts of little gadgets and things. And I discovered all these keys, and they're so cute. So I have mounted them on little pieces of wood just with glue. And this was an old key I found in my drawer. I have no idea what it's for, but it's interesting. And then we're going to throw some of the keys on top with a gel plate in mind and see what turns up. As usual, lots of experimenting and having fun with the gel plate. So let's get started. So first of all, I'm going to make a nice background. And we'll set this aside for the moment. And we're just going to do some blue. And this is brilliant blue, which is a little bit like phthalo and ultramarine in combo with a little bit of white Amsterdam paints. And maybe a little bit of a sepia color here, or this warm gray color. Okay. That might be a bit much, so we'll just put on our little palette and we'll brayer that out. Now at this point you can either leave it as, you know, fairly plain background because we're going to add all this texture after, or you can even start putting some imagery, maybe stencils or other things. I might just do some negative key stamping right off the bat. They will show up white. The snippets are all about experimentation, so to have fun and to try stuff. Don't worry about a beautiful finished product. Just try whatever pleases you. And you never know what you're going to end up with. Let's see how that prints. Okay. We're going to have to let this coat dry really well for the transfer, which is what we'll do to get that image on the... So we have a few little obscure keys in the background. That's perfect. Okay, so we're going to clean off the plate here, or maybe do a ghost print. Let's do a ghost print. Never waste paint. I use the, you can use deli paper, or you can, I use this Hosho type mulberry paper that is, it's called Oriental paper, but that's basically what it is mulberry. And often, as that typical, your ghost print will be so much more interesting. So we can work with that as well. So we'll be going back and forth as usual. So let's just clean that off. I want to make sure that our transfer works really well. I'm just using a bit of spray with alcohol in it. It works really good. Okay, with transfers, Yeah, there's sort of a critical amount, not too much and not too little either. Experience will help you gauge exactly how much you need. If it's too thick, the transfer won't happen. If it's too thin, it'll dry before you can use it. So it's a bit much, so I'm just taking a little bit off. And that should be perfect. And this is double printed. My laser printer, the ink is the generic ink. So I'm just placing it, rubbing it down. And basically the printer ink just resists, and that's why you get an image. Resists the paint. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Maybe a bit on the dark side. Over on the dark side. Well, that's typical for, but I'm going to let that dry. That just looks a bit too heavy for me, and well, okay, live dangerously. Since it's fairly wet, we can do the transfer. Sometimes you can do the transfer right away if it's still fairly wet, and if not, let it dry and then put on a release coat, which is just putting a lighter color, and that will pick up the paint. A few little wrinkles here, and make sure you get your, don't leave it down too long. And just making sure the wrinkles are, and it's printing in the corner here. Ooh. And look at that, folks. We've got a nice image. Yes, there's an old house. I will find out the name. I'm still working on trying to find, it's not in the historical records for some reason, and so I have to talk to some people who know it, and we'll figure out, you know, who lived there and so forth. Anyway, the print is really working out quite nicely. We need to let it dry, so we're going to take a break, so grab yourself whatever your favorite drink is and join me in a minute. So there's two approaches to this. One is you can ink each key separately, put it in position on the plate. I found that printing the keys and then stamping them directly doesn't work very well, but it prints beautifully if you print it off the gel plate, so it's a good trick to learn. So I have a little roller. I'm going to add a little bit more color here. Orange is complement to the blue, so we're just going to gray it down a little bit. And I will probably add a little bit of medium to help it. This is the Golden Open acrylic medium, and it will just keep it open a little bit longer. You want to roll it out so that it's not a big blob on there. Roller's sticking a little bit. You can sort of hear it when it does the right thing. It's a little bit too much ink on there still. Okay, which key do we start with? Let's start with a big one. So I'm just going to roll it on here. And then I have to sort of think about positioning. It's not too bad. Do a few of these. let some of it be random, and maybe not too much paint, so that it's sort of like a lost edge, like you do in watercolor. And then you print and see what happens. And that's showing up very nicely. We have such a dark background that you really do have to either print the keys in a light color or a white. And let's see, what else can we put on there? A little bit of an ornament. We can pretend this is maybe a door finial or something like that. I like the patterns, so you never know where you're going to pick up patterns. Could be anywhere. We need to ink it a bit more. Do things that go off the page, always interesting. And try and avoid the corners because your eye just goes zipping off a corner. Let's print that and see. It may overlap some of the keys we've done already, but that's okay. We're adding texture. Oh, it's showing up quite nicely. More keys. I really like this little heart one. That is so cute. And I sort of, because I've left the previous impressions, they're not picking up anymore anyway, so that way you can see position of where you've placed the imprint of the other keys, and you can cross them if you like. All right, we have a fuzzle hanging of glue hanging off this. We'll see how that prints. And be sure and follow the less is more. So as you're seeing it become more and more elaborate, stop when you figure it's just getting a bit out of hand. We have a few more keys that are quite lovely. This one has a flat side, so that prints really well. Okay, that's in this corner here, so we'll avoid that. We want this corner. And maybe down in here. Yeah. Again, just judging whether we've got a little bit too much already. I think we could have something there yet. I'll have to figure out. That must be in here. I have a little tiny key we can use. And keys are kind of mysterious things. You never know what they unlock. And sometimes you can have an interesting key and you're scratching your head now. What's it for? And you don't want to throw it out. And over time they accumulate. So they're fair game for gel plate printing. Now then, maybe here. Okay. Let's see. I think that's good. So we have our background, our interesting door background. Well, actually, it's half a door from an old local house. It should be a heritage house, but I haven't seen the designation for it yet. But so interesting, all the texture of the old boards, and then the gel plate texture as well, and then the texture of all the keys. So be sure and tune in for part 2, where we work with ghost prints with the keys. And thanks so much for joining us today, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.